What kind of emotional impact did this role have on you?
A massive one. I was just outside crying with people, actually. A huge emotional impact. And that's because of the fact that everything you see in the film, from Paul's writing to the people that Ken and Paul met, to the people that I met when I was doing research, and also when we were shooting the film, people in these situations, you're stepping into people's lives and you're trying to portray something that's happening to millions of people across the world in one form or another. And so you have a real responsibility to them. And yeah, so a huge emotional impact.
Can you tell us about the research process? What did it consist of?
I worked with Shelter, the UK homeless charity, who do brilliant work, not just in campaigning, but they also now provide fantastic legal advice for men and women and families who are in situations not dissimilar to Katie's. Particularly as there's now a housing crisis in London, lack of social housing, the influx in private landlords and the ridiculous rent prices. So what they have to do legally is now really, really developed. And they put me in touch with two women who were in very similar circumstances to Katie. And I went and met with them, and I met their children and spoke to them about what they'd been through and how they got through day to day and what they hoped for and what they wanted to do to make their children's lives better. And then Paul Laverty and I worked on a very strong biography for Katie before we began shooting, so we know who she was and where she'd been.
And what are your thoughts on the current climate post-Brexit?
It's a scary one. I think 2016 is a strange year. It's a very strange year in Britain. I think it's very dangerous. I think it's very uncertain. I think there's a lack of leadership. I mean, Theresa May has come in as our Prime Minister, and as far as I'm concerned, up until the Tory conference, she was pretty much invisible. And I'll be completely honest, the things she did come out with didn't spark any flame of hope or well-being in me or in a lot of people. But I do think that the main glimmer of hope we've got is the fact that Jeremy Corbyn has been elected to lead the Labour Party. I think that he is unpopular with people, or has been made to seem unpopular with people by the media, and it's because they're scared of the fact that the man is committed to changes. He's committed and believes in what he says. He doesn't just spout policy. He lives it and breathes it. And I think that it is very important to really take that on board and invest in him, because if we don't, we're going to end up afloat again. And if people do want change and they want to change from the Tories, then they have to invest in Jeremy Corbyn and what he's trying to do. If we get behind him, I think real changes could take place. I trust in him a lot.
What do you think would be the next step in terms of politics for improving things?
It's a huge question. It's a massive question. I don't know in terms of politics. I mean, I'm not an MP, I'm not a politician, but I know in terms of working class people who don't know which way to vote, or who didn't know which way to vote in Brexit, and so followed kind of media propaganda and were confused or uneducated. I hope that films like I, Daniel Blake, will resonate with people. They'll see something in it that they understand or that they recognise, and hopefully it will give them some kind of energy to galvanise and to speak to their neighbour and to speak to the people in their community and see what's next and see what they can do to make some changes.
And what was it like to work with Ken Loach?
It was fantastic. The man's an absolute master. He's a wonderful filmmaker. He's a very, very important filmmaker. I don't know what we're going to do without him. Thank God he's still going at 80. But even aside from that, as a human being, it's one of the greatest I've ever met. He's a good man, he's a funny man, and he really, anything you see in his films, anything you hear him talk about, he believes in fully. He's got the kindest man I've ever met. Yeah.
And how did you first react when the film won at the Cannes Festival?
It was very surreal. It was very surreal. It's one of the biggest awards that a film can win, and we were overjoyed about it. You know, as an artist, it makes you feel like it's a recognition of your work, but more importantly, we knew that it would give the film a second life. It wouldn't just be an art house film. It wouldn't just be written off, and it would give it a real punch and a real kick, and it would mean that people couldn't ignore it. People had to see it, it had to have an audience, and that also distributors from around the world would get behind the film, which means makes the audience even wider. And that's the most important film, is the strength of life that it gives to it. Yeah.
Did it get the reaction you expected?
I don't know what I expected. I'd never been to Cannes. It was very strange. No, I'm not sure. We had an amazing reaction. If it was one, I don't know what I expected, but it certainly had a fantastic reaction, and they looked after us in Cannes. They really gave us a stage and they gave us a voice. They understand Ken and Paul and Rebecca's ethos, and they don't try and stifle that, and that's fantastic, I think.
And do you have a message to the people who are struggling in the same way as your character?
I mean, I think the most important thing is not to isolate yourself. I met a lot of people who had suffered severe isolation. They felt lost, they didn't know where to turn to, and they felt ashamed. They felt a loss of dignity. And I think that isolation can be the most dangerous thing. It can really destroy you mentally. And so I'd say don't isolate yourself. Get yourself in a community. Go to your local church. Go to your local charity, and find help and find conversation and find a cup of tea. And it will just bring you out of yourself, because isolation can be extremely dangerous in these circumstances.
And what's next for you in terms of the projects you're working on?
I'm just writing at the moment. I'm working on my first screenplay, so it's early days.
Well, good luck with that. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.